I am Tim, and today we're going to be talking about the magical combination for making a modern website. So, you can either be watching this video on YouTube, in which case, please subscribe, but you can also be watching this at one of the meetups or conferences, because this video is actually made for a conference. It's one of those pre-recorded ones. But I'm making sure it's not too long so you can also watch it on YouTube. So anyways, let's get started because like I said, this is for a conference, right? So let's start about telling a little bit about me. I am Tim, as I said. I am Dutch. I'm from Amsterdam, but I live in Paris. And you can follow me here on Twitter or that site. I don't know where I'm going to put the camera yet. Anyway, so I work at Valtech, where I'm a director of front-end development, and I'm a media developer expert at Cloudinary. So let's jump right in. So what the hell is a modern website? Well, I guess a lot of people have a lot of opinions on this matter, but I'm scoping it this way, and we'll change it up a bit later, as you'll see. So a modern website, I think, is rich in content. It is progressively enhanced. It's very fast. It's eco-friendly. That's a big one. It has great SEO, but also great accessibility. It works offline and it's secure. So that's a whole handful, right? And of course, I haven't covered everything, but I think there's also more to this story. Because usually, especially where I work with big brands and global platforms. Generally, websites are part of wow, that's a mouthful, a digital experience platform. So a digital experience platform is kind of a set of tools that create the end user experience, but also the business user's experience and the content editor experience. It's like the whole platform of the whole website. And so inside this is content management, there's marketing, analytics, personalization, digital asset management, search. There's this whole thing, and even on e-commerce, there's even more, right? So I wanted to show you here, this is a very minimal version of what one of those platforms can be, right? So there's a CDN, there's a build, there's an API layer, there's a front end that's right behind the CDN. There's design and dev tools, like from creative work, but also to any sort of tool that makes you be able to work on that website. And then, of course, we have the CMS, which has personalization, digital image management. Then we have search, user data, analytics. And like I said, if there's e-commerce, there's way more. And so I kept it light because this is going to be a pretty big slide. And you know what? Generally, or traditionally, all of that stuff that we just saw is in one system, right? So we have WordPress, Drupal, Sitecore, Adobe AEM, we have Episerver. There's a lot more, and not all of them contain all of this stuff. However, if you look at an Adobe AEM ecosystem, all the stuff we just talked about, it has it. Same goes for Sitecore. And WordPress and Drupal are slightly smaller, but they all kind of encompass a whole bunch of services, which is really great, right? It's like your one-stop shop. But oh no, there's no but just yet. We actually call this best of suite, right? So it's a suite of services within one big block. There's the but. The future actually looks quite different. In my opinion, we're going to change that system up a little bit, right? We can also build a digital experience platform by using best of breed. And so just now we talked about best of suite, but best of breed is actually a different approach to things. Like a suite is a suite of a whole bunch of tools, but a breed is kind of one block, right? So if we now look again at this graph, if we can replace all of this stuff with best of breed solutions rather than the tool from one big suite, right? Your CDN would be Netlify or Vercel, or you have GitHub Actions, or in GitLab you probably have something similar. Your APIs can be Lambda functions. You can use Figma as a creative tool. You can use Cloudinary as a DAM. You can use Hotjar or anything else for analytics. Then user data, we have something like Gigia. We can use Algolia or Coveo for search. We have Prismic or Contentful or whatever. Or we have Nuxt, the Gatsby Next, whatever you want, right? So you can basically create this digital experience platform, but then kind of put it together like the puzzle that you want it to be, rather than just going to one big system and say, Adobe, I will pay you 1 million, you give me everything. That is a really valid option for a lot of companies. But for websites that are slightly different, or in my opinion, what can work much better for the end user is when we can choose and pick all the best of breed systems, right? So this is where my website comes into play, the website I built just now. Um, you know what? I work in this big enterprise system, right? And I constantly have to talk to people, clients, CTOs, whatever, about this kind of stuff. So I just wanted to build my own site with those best of breed tools to actually figure out what is actually this magical golden combination for a modern website, right? So my website was built only with the best of breed tools. And of course, my website is not a full digital experience platform, but you know what? It has kind of a part of it. So let's talk about my website for a second, and then we'll just dissect it and go in each chunk to see what that chunk does and how it's combined or how things connect up. Right. So my website is built with Prismic, Nuxt, Algolia, Cloudinary, and Vercel. First things first. Let's have a look at the performance. This is my website. So let's have a little scroll about so you can see what all the stuff is about that I'm talking about. So I have a bunch of pages. You see it's relatively rich, but it's still a simple website. You see, so we have some cool things like some faceted search for videos, and there's like video pages here. Everything is loading lazy. It's really performant. I've actually had to add those animations because otherwise people wouldn't always see the page change because it's so fast. Right, so how about, because you can see here on my lighthouse is already open, so let's just run a report and see where we are at. As you can see, this is the live website. It's timbenniks.dev. You can go there and do this now. I know I have pretty good connection. I have a fast computer. So we actually just hit 100, and it's including clear storage and simulated throttling. That's not a bad score. However, I'm a nerd and I spent a bunch of time on that. And you know what? This morning it was still 99 on performance, and for some reason now it's 100. It is only makes me happy because this is, I'm recording the video now. Anyways, I'll leave it at this for now. Let's go back and actually dissect all the pieces that make up this website. So let's start with the core of the website. So I always have enjoyed using Nuxt. I've had some side shows going with Gritsum and other things, and in the end I just came back to Nuxt because I just enjoy working with it. It has all the black box simplicity that you want, but if you wanted to do anything that's a little bit out of the ordinary, it just gives you the options and you can just run with it. And you know what? I did a little bit, and so that is actually super cool. And I'm using 2.14, which has like super optimized target static, which means my output can be a static website, and it has like a crawler to find all the pages, and I don't have to do anything super complicated to get a statically generated website. Nuxt works really, really well, especially when you like the Vue ecosystem, right? So I wouldn't have it any other way. I am next. Next part. So for hosting, building, and deploying, there's a bunch of options out there, but you know what? I actually have a Jamstack website. So whatever comes out is fairly simple. It's just a bunch of files. If you want to scale up because it's Christmas time or Black Friday, if you have Jamstack, it's just a bunch of files. So you just put them on more places on the CDN and it's fast. This is cool. Because of that, you can also not hack it. There's not really any sort of PHP controller or a Java thing that you can hack. It's not there, right? So to host, build, and deploy, I used Vercel. So let's have a look at the Vercel interface so I can show you what it does. I know a lot of people use Netlify, and I was one of those. I used Netlify all the time. And at one point, someone told me, I think it was Maya Shavin, you'll find her on Twitter. She works also at Cloudinary, just like me. She's awesome. And she said, Tim, why don't you try Vercel for a change? Like, okay, let's do it. And you know what? It's just seamless. The thing works, it gets out of the way, and it just works. Right, so this is the overview of my page. You can see it makes a vercel.app URL for you, even based on specific builds. So you can also do previews if you want. If you have a different branch that just ran, you can actually see a branch preview of different code. So Vercel is connected to GitHub in my case. And when there's a change on a certain branch in GitHub, Vercel will just grab the new code, run a build with Nuxt, and publish it to the CDN edge. Right, so when you look at deployments, 4 hours ago I did some updates because you know what, I need to get a high audit score. It actually just ran Nuxt generate here, and that works really, really well. So you can also see a bunch of other stuff here, like for example, my domains are actually also here. So Vercel takes over the DNS for me, which is like they are a really modern platform, and it works so well. I literally add something and it just works. I've had a lot of bad other experiences with DNS and hosting and stuff, and these guys just make it seamless. And there's also integrations. So I run a lighthouse every time I do a deploy. I don't really look at it, but it's really interesting because you can also add Slack or whatever you want, and so it's really an interconnected thing. And so yeah, this is actually a super cool, oh, it just loaded my own website. It's a super cool, simple, and out of the way system that I never have to worry about. Every time I publish something in the CMS, it updates something. Every time I push some code, it updates something. How that all works, we'll get to a little bit later in this talk. Okay, next subject. Next up on the list is content management. And this might not be a surprise for anyone. I like Prismic. I've used Prismic for a bunch of my projects and I intend to keep using them. Of course, there are a lot of different options out there for headless CMSs. I think you can even go to headlesscms.org and find like a list of 100, maybe even more. And all of them have different features. Like, for example, I love Storyblock, I love Contentful. They just have a different angle on the thing that they do. I enjoy Prismic because it's so simple, and it also has a bunch of features that even huge enterprise systems haven't covered. Right, so let's go into my Prismic dashboard so I can show you the things that I like that might make you choose Prismic as well. And no, I'm not sponsored by them. However, their CEO actually gave me this amazing microphone. So big thanks for that, Sadek. I just wanted to plug you in there. I don't do that often, but I think it's important. Not because I'm here to say how awesome Prismic is, even though it is. I think it's important to highlight people that sponsor you sometimes. So the first thing that I really enjoy from Prismic is, of course, it's headless, but it has a GraphQL API and a REST API that are both super solid. It's fast, it's secure, it just works. There's no quirkiness around it. It works. There's a really cool community. So if you have any questions, you ask, and like within the day, you have good answers. The next thing that I really enjoy is, well, let's have a look and go to my homepage. As you can see, it's a very simple interface. You can model your own data. So in the homepage, I modeled that I want to have a main title, a subtitle, and a structured text, and an image, stuff like that. So the basics just work. However, the next bit that I really enjoy is something that they call slices. And they actually created a program called the Slice Machine, which this is using. So I have a very simple implementation of Slice Machine, but what it means, you can actually add different slices of data to your page. In this case, I have a hero banner. If I wanted to add that, I could actually add that in here. I already have one, so I'm just going to remove it for now. So here's my hero banner, but I can also add, let's say, my top videos, right? So I can actually say, okay, let's just move this here, and or maybe I want to add another video, and you can select one. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there that basically makes your pages are now component driven rather than just being one big page like in WordPress, for example. And of course you can do anything with any system, but this works so well because as a developer you can just choose to model your own slices or components and then move them around. Like I can move this one down, and now actually the hi there, I'm Tim Benniks thing is now below the top videos. Or I can move it back up. Let's keep it back up because I don't want to destroy my video just for a talk or my webpage. This is really powerful, and they have built something called the Slice Machine, which is more like a front-end framework and a CLI extension that lets you locally, when you develop, create a slice in the system and then create files for you in your code that represent that slice. And there's like one big Vue object or Vue component that basically just queries your page based on the UID that you set, and it will actually return which slices that you put in the CMS, and it links that to the component you have in Nuxt. So that way you don't have to know which components are on a page because the Slice Machine does that for you. So that slices part is super cool. And now on to the part that a lot of, discard my changes, that a lot of big e-commerce systems or big CMS systems haven't tackled. Like generally, like most of my pages don't need all the different slices. Like this is just a blog page. This is the sponsor page that I just released, right? I always have a title and a subtitle, but then my content basically houses a lot of stuff, right? I have my text, but then I have like an embed I just put in. If I wanted to add in an image here, that's actually very easy. I just click on image, add it in, and there it is. And this looks like super simple, right? But actually this is all done in a rich text editor. And rich text is a super hard thing to do for a lot of CMSs. And these guys just nailed it. The main thing that makes it so cool is that all of that data in the rich text is represented as JSON on the front end, right? And that means you can just query the JSON or loop over it and then build your own HTML from that. So you don't have to rely on whatever crap comes out of a rich text editor in any other CMS. This is super strong. And of course they built a Nuxt module. So I just plug in my Nuxt Prismic module, I say read this text, and it just reads it. And it creates HTML for me. But I can also say, no, but when you find an image, make it lazy, and this is the HTML you have to use. So now the front-end developer has all the power. And you know what, Prismic, you rock, because this is all I need. This is like, yes. Okay, this is getting quite long now because I'm quite enthusiastic, as you can see. On to the next bit. The next part we should discuss is searching and filtering. Because in my line of work, almost every website we build has some sort of product list that needs to be filtered with facets and numbers of how many things will show after you have filtered. It's a complicated thing to do, and every time we build a project we seem to misunderstand how it works, or people they want something else of what the tool does. So I thought, I have a whole bunch of video content, right? Why not just put a list on my website that I can filter through, just like I would do on the major websites I work on at work. And so for this I decided to use Algolia. Actually, funny enough, not even because I knew what their capabilities were, but they have an office in Paris, and I thought, hey, Algolia, I saw them speak in conferences, they're really good, and they have a French office. I'm just gonna try it. I'm starting to become quite French now, because as a Dutchie, I wasn't nationalist at all. Anyways, without further ado, this is the interface of Algolia. So basically what Algolia does, it has an index of my videos. And what it means in searching, if you have something called an index, it's kind of a little database of stuff that you can search through really well. And each field in that database has a specific weight to, if you match to it, it signifies a certain importance, right? So in this list here that you can see on the screen, there are all my videos, right? You can scroll through. And these are the fields that I decided to put in. So I have an object ID. This is kind of the UID for Algolia itself. Title, tags, image, slug, publication date, and modified. So basically what I do right now, if you go to my website and you look at the videos page, this list here actually comes directly from Algolia. So I don't query Prismic with Nuxt to show this list. I actually ask Algolia, give me the list without searching, right? Just order it by date. The ordering you can actually set up in Algolia. And then when I click, let's say, conference talk, right now it's 2. With this video, it's going to be 3 later on. So you can see that I can actually filter really nicely. And all of that this does is calling the REST API of Algolia and then show it on the screen. Actually, I don't want to go much deeper than this because this just works really well. And the main thing of what I love about it is when you look at the code here, I actually use the Algolia Vue package. So you can see the Algolia instant search component. Then this is one wrapper component that looks at my videos index, right? And then it has a refinement list. Then it has a stats object. Then it has an infinite hits. And what that means is we have the refinement list, we have the stats, we have the infinite hits, and then it means infinite because you can keep clicking until there are no longer any videos anymore. And you know what? They wrapped it up really nicely and put a bow on it and gave me those components and say, just run with it, right? They use really nice scoped slots, so I can basically code whatever I wanted, put that stuff in, and then tree shake it and put it in next. And there's my search. That's amazing. So now we go on to one part that's slightly more complex in the video, because how do we get the data from Prismic into Algolia so it can actually deliver me this search stuff? Because my website doesn't know about that stuff. Everything is headless. It's really a composed digital experience platform, as we discussed, right? So let's get into it. This is a bit of the part of having this best of breed solutions that is actually the hardest bit of organizing an experience like this. Because actually all those services live on their own. Their whole goal is to not really know about each other. So the point is you have to orchestrate them, right? You have to make sure that those services sometimes talk to one another to be able to show something nice on the front end. Because you don't always want to have all the knowledge and the state keeping in the front end, because you know what? It's a Jamstack site. It shouldn't have all this dynamic stuff, right? So generally what you do is you use webhooks and Lambda functions, or function as a service, like small functions that live in the cloud that don't know much but can just do simple things, right? And this is how I have solved how when I click on publish in Prismic, my website gets redeployed by Vercel. But it's also when I click publish in Prismic that my Algolia list is updated, right? So if you go to Prismic, you can see I've set up some webhooks. So I have one webhook set to Vercel and one webhook set to Algolia. So when you look at that, it's basically it triggers when a document is published, when a release is created, stuff like that, right? So when I publish a page, it will actually use a webhook to call Vercel saying, you know what, there's an update in the content, please rebuild the website. And the same goes for Algolia. So when I publish a video, I actually, in this case, I am calling timbenniks.dev/API/Prismic to Algolia. So I use the webhook from Prismic to call my own API. And that API I have actually created with the help of Vercel, which is this bad boy. So basically what this piece of code is doing is it's called by Prismic. And if you do /API and then a file, in this case Prismic to Algolia.js, Vercel actually says, hey, there's a /API. You probably want that to be some sort of function. So it grabs that stuff or that file, uses it as a node script and puts it in the cloud for you on that URL. So /API/Prismic to Algolia. So that is so cool from Vercel, and I know a bunch of other companies do the same stuff. However, this worked so well, there was no setup. I literally had to do /API and just code something. So I coded here an async function that basically connects to the Prismic API and it connects to Algolia search. So kind of what it does is the moment I hit, this thing gets hit, it will find from the Prismic API all the documents of type video and it puts them in descending order, right? And I just do page size 1000, so I'm just gonna get all my videos. And then I map those results to the fields that I have in my index in Algolia. Remember when we looked at those fields here in Algolia, we have title, tags, image, slug, stuff like that. That stuff is actually here. Title, tags, image, slug, publication date, all of that stuff is here. So I map the data from Prismic to an object that is basically my whole index in Algolia. And then what I do, I tell Algolia, okay, videos is the index I want to use. And then I literally just save the objects with the stuff that I just made. So, and then push it to Algolia. So what I do is when you hit publish, I query all my videos, including the new stuff, right? And I just replace my whole index in Algolia. And you know what? Because I don't have many videos, this is easy, right? If you have 40 items, this is like 3 kilobytes. It's all good. You can also do incremental updates, right? If you have like 50,000 items in your index, like when you're Tailwind and you're using that to search with Algolia, you're not gonna wanna replace everything. So you can also do just add one. But this simple function that's like under 50 lines basically is the glue between all those systems that I use. And the moment that thing is updated, it is also updated on Vercel, because of course when I hit save on Prismic, it does this function that we're looking at now here, but it also does a new build in the code on Vercel. So every time I hit publish, in about, I think probably 30 seconds, my website is updated and the videos run. So this is the only bit of complexity in the orchestration of the architecture. But further on, it's not that hard. You just have to get into it. Okay, to the last bit now. So the last bit of the architecture is actually the images. And if you know me a little bit, I am really into media delivery, right? Is it responsive images, file types, performance, all of that stuff. It's super, super important. So for me, a best of breed solution for media is just so important, right? So I chose Cloudinary, and that's probably like Captain Obvious here, because I've worked as an MDE for Cloudinary for a while. I've used their products for years. It's awesome. And there are some others out there that actually do really well, but I just like Cloudinary. That's why I used it. They are basically the market leader. So I'll show you Cloudinary itself, and then I'll just try to explain what Cloudinary actually is. Because Cloudinary, again, is one of those cloud native SaaS solutions that has a media library, as you can see here. And so they have some media or digital asset management system capabilities. They're kind of pushing hard on that at the moment. But where they really shine is the output of assets, right? They have a really cool API on the URL. If you go to my website and you check this image here, let me just open it in a new tab. You can see aspect ratio 16:9, crop fill, file type auto, quality auto, width 900. All of that stuff I actually add from my end because I know at that point that's the image I want to show. Interesting is that if you use Prismic, you actually get your images from images.prismic.io. If you look at that, let's go there. Well, not that. Let's try that again. Yes, there we go. So this is, whoa, that is a pretty big image. That's the image I get from Prismic, and they use image IX, which is really, really good. However, I like Cloudinary. So what I actually did, I worked with Maya Shavin. Again, her name is now twice in this video. that built the Nuxt plugin for Cloudinary. And Cloudinary is this amazing fetch feature, right? So if you look again at this image, you can see that I go to Cloudinary, my account, image, and then fetch. And you can add any URL behind that to fetch and add it to Cloudinary. So this is kind of how I hacked to get around the Prismic image stuff that is actually decent. If you use Prismic, just use those images, right? I'm a bit special. I wanted to change that. But because I can use the fetch, any image you see here would normally be rendered by Prismic, but because of my code, I actually just concatenate the URL in such a way that this little image here, oh, that's not the image. Where is the image? This image is actually Prismic, but I get it through Cloudinary. And Cloudinary is just amazing in optimization and all of that stuff. But this is not really a Cloudinary talk, so I won't go too deep, but it has a lot of cool stuff. And you can see using fetch, all the images on my website just end up here. So that was it for images. I want to thank you for watching this talk. I think it turned out to be pretty long. We'll see in edit. Thank you very much. You can follow me on Twitter, or if you would, maybe subscribe on my YouTube channel. And just now, since today or yesterday, I actually have a buy me a coffee page. You can see that on the left bottom here. That means you can actually sponsor me or send some donations, because I do a lot of work in the community and I want to just take it to the next level. So please consider maybe donating. Of course, if you don't want to, definitely don't do it. It's up to you. I'm just here to see if that works, and it seems to be cool. People seems to like what I have to say. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.
Perfect.
Complicated stuff, this live streaming, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now that I restarted everything, I don't actually have the chat on, so I'm going to rely on you for the chat stuff.
Oh, yeah. So we can start there. There were already some questions, right? Something.
Exactly.
So we can. Let me try to find it. Keep for QA. So blah blah blah. There was from Norman. He wonders if there's anything on Vercel that Netlify doesn't have.
I'm thinking that if you compare them, that Netlify has more features. But I think what Vercel is doing more is they are super tightly coupled to Next.js, right? Because their CEO, Guillaume, is actually also working on that, or Guillermo, I think his name is. So they have all these super cool native kind of features, like indexation of your pages and like being able to get very specific analytics of your Next.js pages. So they have that really nicely coupled. The one thing that I really enjoyed with Vercel is that the DNS thing, it just worked much easier for me personally than Netlify did. How that happened, I don't know. Maybe Netlify is fine now too. But I just switched because my friend told me, why don't you check them out? And I tried, and it worked so well. You basically don't have to care about anything. Yeah. You just set it up, never look at it again. And they also have a pretty nice local CLI, which probably Netlify has as well. But I can get all my environment variables that are actually online. I can sync them to my local and then work locally with all those variables. And also they map all your Lambda functions that you normally have online. They map them to your local so that you can also use your local Lambda functions, which is a pretty cool thing. Yeah. Then again, probably Netlify has the same.
There's a question if Netlify has Lighthouse integration, but I don't know.
I don't think so. Not sure. The Lighthouse thing that I showed you is one of many things that Vercel can integrate with, because it's just a CI stack, right? So you can just, if you have some sort of plugin system, you can plug in anything that can look at a code base.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to do code quality or run some unit tests, whatever, you can plug that in.
Yeah. There was something Nuxt versus Gritsum thing.
Ah, yes. And you know what? Yeah, I remember this question. It's like, what if we have Nuxt, why have Gritsum? It's actually kind of funny, right? Because if you look at what Gritsum is doing, they're doing so well
Mm,
because they chose one smaller scope. They said we want to use GraphQL for local query of whatever data you can fetch from somewhere else, and we will just give you a weblog, like a
mm,
really good blog. And of course, you can do more things. I did more things with it, but I had to fight it a little. But if you just want a good blog with either local files or a contentful CMS or something like that,
mm.
you just use the connector, and then locally you only have to do GraphQL,
Yeah.
and it kind of forces you into like a smaller thing.
Mm.
And once you want to do things a little bit outside of the box, you have to work a bit harder for it. But because of that, it's super successful.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree. I tried both. Uh,
Mm,
in the past, I did some website in a Gritsum, and it was pretty easy. And I
exactly.
really like that you have like basically only the GraphQL in on your local, and you working only with GraphQL, which
Yeah.
collects the all APIs. That's really cool. But right now, I'm I start working with Next because they introduced the statics, right?
Oh, exactly. The
And
next content. Yeah.
yeah, which kind of you have like kind of I know that Gridsome is like for some specific website it's really good,
Yeah.
but Next is more universal. If you are doing some I don't know simple website, it's Gridsome or it's fine. But if you're doing something which can may in the future grow more, I
Yeah.
think Next is much more better for this.
Well, it's so much more open, which doesn't mean it's better. It's just more open. It's not so opinionated. And the thing with Gridson that I had issues with is I use Prismic as my CMS, and they also have a GraphQL interface.
Mm,
So I thought, you know what, I just go for my local GraphQL to the endpoints in GraphQL of Prismic, and somebody wrote a little plugin for that, and it didn't really work. And then you started to see that I had to start writing now Node.js code that would run in my local Gridsum to be able to create my local GraphQL to be able to query. And then suddenly I spend 2 weeks on something that with Nux there's like literally 1 second,
mm,
and it was great because my local GraphQL was a really nice way to work.
yeah.
But there was no need for it,
Mm.
so I had to just like jump through a hoop backwards, kind of, to get something to work. Which is sometimes it's fun. I had a lot of fun with that website, and I had good success with it. But I also wanted to do like the Algolia integration. I wanted
Mm.
to show all my videos, all this extra stuff. And there's also some stuff in the behind the scenes that you don't see,
Mm.
that I also wanted to do. So that I just wanted next. It's more open.
Yeah. There is ViewPress still relevant with this?
Whoa, that's a really good question. Because you know what? If you look at ViewPress, it's such a big machine that can do so many things so well. It's just pretty big. It's like I looked into for the Vue.js Amsterdam conference last year in
Mm.
February. No, it was for Vue.js Global in August, I think. I looked into Vite and VitePress, which is basically like newer versions and lighter versions of whatever Vue 2 CLI did, or
Mm.
and Vue Press basically. And I think Vue Press is still really relevant with all their whole ecosystem, right? But if you look at Nuxt content or Feed Press and you have something simple, I would go with that because I already use Nuxt, so it's a very close
Mm.
thing for me. I just,
Yeah.
if I need a little bit, I just plug it in. However, if you have something more complex, something like ViewPress can work. Like imagine doing the Tailwind documentation. That's pretty intense, right?
Mm. Yeah.
You might want to go a ViewPress for that because it has all these extras.
Yeah. 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 I think maybe for documentation, ViewPress is it's like ideal for
Yeah, it
yeah
is
yeah.
definitely.
So there is other. What do you think about the Strapi as an alternative to Prismic?
You know what? Strapi is actually awesome. The only drawback for me, and I'm not sure if that's still the case, but what I didn't like about it and why I didn't use it is because it's self-hosted. You have to actually grab it, host it
Mm.
somewhere, and then
Yeah.
use it. And I was just not looking for that. I was really more into the SaaS systems, right?
Yeah.
Software as a service or the platform things.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that made me not look at it.
Yeah. I used Strapi last year for
Mm-hmm.
one site, one small site, and yeah, you need to self-host it. So it's
Exactly.
but on the other side, you have like complete control about the Strappy. You can modify it
Everything.
as you want, which
Yeah.
is really
True.
cool.
Yeah.
And then you can add more hooks, and for example, like that. You, I think Strappy has the like hooks for if you change something, you can rebuild the front end, so or something like that. So or
That's
no,
cool.
not directly rebuild the front end, but you can like via hooks call the build for the front end. So I
Yeah, this is what I did manually now, right? I had some kind of hooks connected from the CMS to Vercel and all of that. But
yeah yeah yeah
I
that,
think the flexibility of Strapi is actually really cool.
yeah, and they have like they have really great community, and they I try to do some. I think I had some issues with some things, but you can find anything with the community, and that's really good, and it's still growing. They
Yeah.
developing it like pretty hard, and it's
So where would you host it then if you had to use it? Would you go like AWS and get like a node server or something?
I we have a that was for one company, and they have servers here in Germany,
Ah, okay.
like the hard servers, not hard servers. I don't know what's the correct name, but
Like like
like the
like co-located, like actually in-house.
yeah, like in-house servers, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so it's
Well, then it's easy. Then
yeah,
you just put it on and have some sort of
yeah exactly
um, proxy in front and run.
yeah
Sure.
yeah yeah exactly. Would you consider Vite or Vita? I don't know what's the for your
Oh,
next
it's
view.
actually called vite, which means fast in French.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's nice
That's
to
how it's
that's
supposed
nice to have you here.
to. Well, it's really hard for me to pronounce because in my country, in the Netherlands, where I'm from, the V and the F are almost the same.
Yeah.
So I also don't say it correctly.
Oh, okay. So it's Vite, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
So
that.
for your next Vue project, if
You know what? If it's anything experimental, run with it
yeah.
because um, they did a great job with it because it's kind of open and it's just a different approach. It's a bit like Snowpack rather than Webpack.
Hmm.
They have the same core for the ES6 imports and how that all works on the fly.
Hmm.
However, generally in my job, I work with big enterprise clients with huge projects. It's just too scary to now just go to whatever project that has like 60 markets and e-commerce and all of that, and then yeah, my build doesn't run, but I don't know why, because it's in alpha.
Yeah.
This is just not gonna happen. But for anything I personally do, like not my website now because it just runs on the Nuxt system, but on anything else like some quick stuff, why not? If I use Vue 3, just use Feed because it's all integrated.
Yeah. There is like suggested maybe host it on Heroku or render.com or
Exactly.
DigitalOcean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, sure. My only worry is with those things like imagine you have an overnight success and you have to scale it up,
Yeah.
right? How do you set that up in Heroku? You're going to go to a pro plan and then you have to code the scripts yourself.
Yeah.
Do you boot new servers yourself? Like, probably not, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So it's something more. I don't know if there anything else. I can no.
Norman is saying physical servers. That's actually the word.
Yeah. What did I say? Hard servers. Oh, it's also.
Yeah, so it's close. It's close enough.
Yeah.
We just call it in the basement servers.
Yeah. Yeah. It just shouts.
Hey, Henry Helvetica, he's in the chat. What's up, man? Nice to see you.
Yeah. Perfect. So yeah. Do you have any other underground hosting? Yeah.
Underground hosting, yes, exactly. No, but I had a big client that I cannot name because of reasons. Um, they were doing like huge e-commerce globally,
Mm.
and they had their servers in Paris in the basement. And then the memory would go full, and then it would crash. But 5 minutes before, we scripted that the other one would then turn on, and then that would go full in memory. But then the other one was rebooted again.
Yeah.
That's like black hole of money, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
In my first company when I worked, like it's like, well, 12 years ago, and we had like physical servers, hard servers,
hard
like
servers.
in the attic of the building.
Yeah, exactly. That's how that goes, man.
Yeah, and like it
Those
was,
were good times.
but I mean we ran PHP for it was fine for it.
I guess it all worked. I remember those times, man.
Yeah.
And you
Okay.
just have pseudo access, and you go into a server and you do something wrong, and then everything goes to shit.
Yeah, it was funny because the server was for it was for some kind of information system for universities.
Mm.
Yeah. So and it's a real it was pretty like if it crashed like the we had like 6 or 7 Czech big universities.
Ah,
So if it
sure.
crash, everything is down. Like all the
That's a
system.
problem, man.
That was
But
that.
like
Yeah.
the thing is, sometimes it's hard to change because you have like in Amsterdam, there's one of the biggest airports in Europe, I think, and they have all the flight information for those panels, right, or those screens. They
Mm,
come from two computers in some bunkers,
yeah.
but they're from the 80s. But the thing is, they cannot just change that because it would, if you disrupt like flights for a week, that's just impossible.
Yeah.
Honestly, right now would be the time to change them because nobody's flying.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be now. It's really good time for refactoring
Yeah.
everything. Like rethink. Perfect. So, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I'm checking the chat also.
Yeah. Do you think?
Actually, I haven't tried
Yeah.
render.com. Sorry, go on.
No, no, no. That's the last question. That's I
Oh,
can.
there's another one now.
Yeah. I can read it. Do you think orchestrating all the
Yeah, sure.
services and moving parts is still faster than building a traditional server app in Laravel, Rails, Django, ignoring performance
You know
advantage
what?
of static
This
pages?
is That's an amazing question, and we have those all the time because right now I'm constantly in pitches with clients where we say you have to go headless and you have to go microservices, blah blah blah. And you know what? For a lot of projects, there's just no need to be doing that,
Mm,
right? If you have a certain scale and you need to iterate on specific features of your website, it's much more interesting to have an orchestrated system because then, let's say you have a wish list and you have a login and you have a search.
mm,
If you want to do like 10,000 new features in your search, you don't want to be deploying your wish list and your shopping cart all the time. You just want to be iterating on your wish list or your search, right? And
mm,
then suddenly, if it's orchestrated like that, it makes more sense.
yeah,
Or things like if you suddenly have Christmas time and nobody's using the homepage, but everybody's only using, let's say, the wish list, right?
yeah,
We've had that before with certain brands.
mm, mm,
It was really cool for us that the wish list was actually a third party service
yeah,
because we can just scale that to infinity and not scale the rest.
mm,
Because imagine you have a Django project, right? You'll have to scale everything. And I love Django. I've used that in the past. It's awesome. But the thing is, you don't want to be scaling the whole thing. And the same goes. Yeah, you see. So this is the nice thing about having an orchestrated system. But on the other hand, there, if you're using like real third-party tools for this, let's say the Cloudinary thing, the
mm,
Algolia thing, the stuff that I showed. If you do this for real on a real project, you're gonna need to have contracts, SLAs, security checks for all of them,
mm,
right? And you have to, if you're a technical stakeholder at a client that has this big system, you're going to have to understand how they all connect, how you orchestrate everything. If you don't really get that as a technical client or a stakeholder, how are you going to tell your boss that this new system is better? You're not
mm,
just, your boss is going to be like, no, just give me WordPress because it's just one box and everything
yeah,
works. Just put a CDN in front and it will scale, right? So there's all these things like how senior are you as a client, and how much need do you have for this orchestration and these different bits.
mm,
If you want to do A/B testing or 80% of your pages with different components and personalization, don't go with one big Adobe AEM instance, but actually just separate it out and do smaller iterations on those third-party services, right? So there's a real drawback in both, or they're both fine, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah.
I hope that actually answers the question.
Yeah, I think so.
Because you know what, the performance of static pages is fun and it's fine, and it's also performance is good, security is good. But what if you are an e-commerce with 100,000 products? Static pages is never going to happen, right? So you'll have to find another way where you can maybe do sort of dynamic CDN on a certain URL,
Yeah.
right? That is integrated into your code base. Like you have a company like Move Web. Maybe I can send the chat what the URL is. And they actually they are for when you want to go towards a bigger system and rendering everything statically is just not realistic anymore.
Mm.
That happens, right? Sometimes it takes you an hour to deploy or 5 hours because you have like a million pages.
Yeah.
And so what these guys do is they allow you to run Nuxt dynamically. And then for each type of URL in the router, you can actually say this one you have to cache it for 5 minutes on your CDN, that one for 1 minute, and that one can just be static, so always serve it for 5 minutes. And then you have all these other things that Netlify and Vercel also give you, like Lambda functions,
Mm.
background running functions, asynchronous things that run a bit longer. And so these kind of companies, they people don't really know these guys, but we are starting to use them for our bigger projects where we can just not have static pages anymore due to size.
Yeah. Perfect. So yeah, I think that's all for Q&A, I guess. Or no.
There we go.
uh, wow. Any good bad experience recommendation when it comes to AUF, like SAS, like Auth0, Okta, Firebase, AWS Cognito, Keycloak, and others?
They're all complicated. And I've had to deal with all of that because this is a bigger problem in those modern front ends, right? So where are you going to put the responsibility for logging in?
Yeah.
Are you, let's say you get a token back from Auth0, which is an excellent service. Are you just going to put that in your local storage? No, that's terrible,
Mm.
right? When somebody steals your session, it's gone. So then you're going to have to build like some making your own key with a salt and then validating that towards a microservice that you build and then goes to Auth0 and like all of those things.
Mm.
What happens when you want to do it server side only? Sometimes that happens. And then you have to code the OAuth integration yourself because you don't have JavaScript. Like there's all these complicated things.
Yeah.
So you know what? They're all complicated. And I've never had like a really easy setup,
Mm.
to be honest.
Yeah, agree.
Um, what I love most is when it's not that complicated, when you can store something in a cookie and not worry too much.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case because let's say you have Jamstack. You're going to store that on the client locally, right? And then
Mm.
you have a problem. So yeah, there you go. And then in my field where I have to work with bigger e-commerce with like old Java backends where we have a modern front end, you get a session ID also, right? And every time we hit a page, we have to validate that the session ID that you have as a user is the same as on the server. Otherwise, if that doesn't match and they start to scale up the servers,
Mm.
you can get somebody else's shopping cart because those IDs are not the same anymore.
Yeah.
So on top of authentication, you also need those like kind of I am not authenticated, but I'm still this user, so I can do the tracking of the A/B testing and all of that. And oh man, it just hurts my brain already talking about it.
Okay.